Come in and talk to you folks. We're going to kind of walk through the CRP program a little bit, some highlights. It gets pretty wordy as we go through, and I tried to condense as much as I possibly could. As we go through this presentation here, and if you have questions anytime during the presentation, please go ahead and ask, because if you're wondering, somebody else is probably wondering too. I like to run an informal meeting, and from what I gathered, so do the GFE folks here on there too. I've been to a few of their meetings here. It's very educational, and I'm hoping that you'll find this the same as we go through. I was a little bit taken back when they told me it was going to be recorded and it was going to be online. I thought, whoa, and there, I've always been told I have a face for radio. But anyway, so as we go forward, I'm just going to touch the CRP program. It came about in the 1985 Farm Bill over 30 years ago. The main focus of the CRP at that time was to offer an acreage reduction program. We had significant amounts of grain quantities, and they wanted to find something that would reduce that. I mean, some of you probably remember back to terms of the old soil bank days and stuff where they idled ground, and essentially this was kind of in that same thinking, back in 1985. And then, of course, we'll gain some environmental benefits from it as well. The current Farm Bill that we have, now the CRP program, and I must say has been an extremely popular program. You have a broad group of supporters for it. You have the farmers that like the program. You have the wildlife folks that like the program. And you'll have the environmental folks that like the program. So that has made it a success over the years. And now our key is more for the environmental side of it and also the habitat. Current Farm Bill limits the CRP, although, to 24 million acres nationally. At one time we were up over 26 million acres in the previous Farm Bill, but now we've been reduced down to that 24 million figure. Here's a kind of a nationwide map, and it's not the best one, but it gives you an idea where the vast majority of the CRP is located. You can see right here in the Midwest that we have the largest amount. Each one of these little blue dots amounts to 1,000 acres. And this map was taken during, or put together, I should say, on August 31st, 2015. And at that time, we had 24.2 million acres. Presently in South Dakota, we have 20,332 CRP contracts, which represents 459,581 acres enrolled in the CRP. We're down from where we were. One time we were up around 1 million acres, actually a little even over. In Minnehaha County, we have a total of 610 CRP contracts, and that represents 6,300 acres. Minnehaha County, we're a little more intense agriculture here. Pretty productive ground, which also comes down to more worth as far as rental rates, things on that order. So it's been a little bit of a harder sell here. Predominantly, most of our CRP contracts in Minnehaha County are of the environmental nature, more of the continuous, and I'll explain that as we go further. But as you can see, 610 contracts and 6,300 acres. Our average contract is just a little over 10 acres. And a few items on here. As of December 15th, enrollment increased by 12,000 acres from the November level. About 108,000 acres were voluntarily withdrawn in fiscal year 2015 under what we call the 2015 Early Out program. We gave producers an opportunity to terminate their contracts if they're within a certain length of the end of the contract. Because at that particular time, we were looking at higher commodity prices, and they wanted to get more acres into production. Then for 2015 expiring contracts, then after that we offered a 1-year extension for those that would expire that year because we were anticipating the possibility of having a general sign up. As you can see, we had 494,000 acres that were going to expire in 2015. So all those were offered a 1-year extension. The general CRP sign-up, we just completed one. Sign-up 49 began accepting offers on December 1st, and it ended on February 26, 2016. We have no results in yet. It will be a while they're compiling all the offers. The fiscal year 2016 continuous sign-up, and I'll explain a little bit on the general and the continuous as we go further. That's sign-up number 48. That increased 131,000 acres. That was twice what the next highest enrollment was. So we got an increase in those acres. The continuous CRP is an ongoing sign-up, and it ends on the end of September of 2016. In May of 2015, acreage allocation for the duck nesting program, the wetland restoration, and the SAFE initiatives were increased by a total of 800,000 acres nationwide. These are all nationwide numbers. And if some of you are wondering what the SAFE program is, that's the State Acres for Wildlife Enhancement. Each state ended up with a program. In South Dakota, it was tremendously successful. We went through our initial allocation to begin with a couple years ago, got an extra allocation, and then we got a third extra allocation. There's some states haven't even begun to use any of theirs, but we have used that program extensively. As I said, I'm going to explain a little bit what a general CRP sign-up is and a continuous CRP. Under the general CRP sign-up, any qualifying cropland can be offered during the general CRP sign-up. General, and when I say qualifying, it has to have a certain crop history for it. General CRP sign-ups do not necessarily happen every year. The last one we had was 2 years ago. The general CRP sign-up is specified and can be held anytime during the year with an announcement start and ending date. All cropland offered under the general CRP sign-up will be scored using what we call an environmental benefits indexing, and that's how we score things. The producer can enhance or can increase that EBI score by offering to commit to implement specific practices, do things to enhance their offer. The higher the score, and when you enhance your offer, you get more points for that. Seedings, certain wetland issues, highly erodible things on that order, all come into play. The CRP acreage annual rental rate will be based on the 3 predominant soils that make up the offered acreage. And the EBI points max out at 240. If you're at that 240 place, you're probably going to have a pretty good chance of getting accepted for a general CRP offer. Cost shares are paid to establish the practice at a rate of 50% of the lesser of the actual cost or what the state committee hold down not to exceed rate is. Sometimes they put just a specific amount that we will pay, or if it's less than that, then that is what is paid. Once the general CRP sign-up ends, all these offers are ranked and a national EBI score cutoff will be announced. All offers that are at the exceed this cutoff will be accepted. The offers that are below will be rejected. Accepted CRP offers will begin on October 1st if the producer so chooses to. Contract duration, 10 years for most general CRP contracts. There are a few that can be 15. That's kind of a real abbreviated version of what a general CRP sign-up is. The next we have, I mentioned like the continuous CRP sign-up, and that runs year-round. It began on October 1st of 2015, and that number 48 sign-up, continuous sign-up, will end on September 30th, 2016. Any qualifying acreage, same thing, that has to have the qualifying cropping history on the land. Can be offered during a continuous CRP sign-up, the continuous sign-up throughout the fiscal year. The CRP process itself makes the qualifying acreage eligible for enrollment. The specific practice that you're going to go into, that's what makes it eligible. You don't have an EBI scoring. The rental rate, again, will be based on the 3 predominant soils that make up the offered acreage. And this is what's an extra incentive for continuous CRP. There is a 20% increase in the annual rental rate. So basically whatever the rental rate is taken times 120%. So you can see there's a pretty good bump in that amount that they're going to receive. There's also, for most of our CRP continuous practices, we have what we call a SIP payment, which is another incentive. It's a $10 per acre signing incentive payment. And we pay that each year up front for a maximum of 10 years. Cost shares are paid to establish the practice, just like we did with the general, at the 50% of the lesser or the actual cost state committee hold down. Plus, for most of the continuous CRP practices, qualify for an additional what we call practice incentive payment, or a PIP payment, and which is another 40% of the actual cost to establish the practice at, and then plus at the hold down or not to exceed rate. Once that contract is approved by the county committee, the local elected county committee in Minnehaha, say, contract can begin the first of the month after committee approval. Contract dates can be delayed up to 6 months. That's the longest they can be delayed. And the crop has to be off of the field. Contract duration, 10 to 15 years for most of the practices. A third CRP offering we have, this kind of just came about, is the CRP grasslands. And that land must currently be planted to a grass cover. Participants voluntarily limit future use of the land while retaining the right to conduct common grazing practices, retain the right to hay, mow, harvest for seed. Of course, there are restrictions with this. Conduct fire rehabilitation, conduct fire breaks and fences. The interested applicant can apply at any time. The applications are batched, ranked, and then they're reviewed at different times of the year to determine if they will be approved or not. So there's a ranking process. It's not like the general, but it's not like the continuous either. Several factors involved with the ranking, from environmental to you're a beginning farmer, you're a veteran farmer, you're a socially disadvantaged farmer or rancher. They rank higher. The annual rental rate will be not more than 75% of the grazing value of the land for the length of the contract. That's a little bit misleading because you will be restricted on the number of head that you could graze on there, say, or the time frame when you can do haying of this acreage, things on that order, but there are some restrictions. Cost shares are paid to assist with establishment of approved practices at that 50% of the lesser or the actual cost or state committee hold down. The contract duration are either 10 to 15 years. One thing that we have with all of our USDA programs that we administer at the FSA office is an AGI, average adjusted gross income. And you are limited if you average over $900,000 adjusted gross income for a 3-year period. And for 2016, we used the 2014, 13, and 2012 years. If you average over that $900,000, you would be ineligible to receive a CRP payment. And like I said, I believe that AGI amount is listed on line 37 of your IRS form, which I'm sure you'll all go home and look to see if you qualify or not. The CRP program is subject to an annual $50,000 payment limitation. That limitation will include all the payments received, the annual rental rate, and either directly or indirectly, for all annual payments and cost shares earned, any signing incentive payments, that SIP payment, and any practice incentive payments, that PIP payment as well. Ownership eligibility. You're limited, you must have owned the land for 1 year prior to being offered for the CRP enrollment. There are some exemptions, say you received the land through inheritance, not purchased for the sole purpose of enrolling in the CRP. You'd have to convince the county committee of that. The operator of the land for 1 year prior to purchasing it. If you have an operator on that land, you will have to give the operator an opportunity to be on that CRP1 contract. The CRP program does not exist to displace the tenant on the farm. CRP practices for both general and continuous. There are 42 different CRP practices in all. Not all the practices are available in South Dakota or in Minnehaha County for that matter. We have some that are in some parts of the state and not others. And the same is true of some of these practices in other parts of the nation. But there's 42 in all. Farmstead windbreaks, there are several living snow fences, field windbreaks, and riparian buffers. Shelter belts. There are several seating practices, buffers and filter strips. We have wetland restoration, floodplain and non-floodplain, grass waterways, native grass, tame grass, and a pollinator habitat, which was recently added. There are several wildlife practices, permanent wildlife habitat, wildlife food plots, rare and declining habitat, duck nesting, safe pheasant restoration, and South Dakota allocation is exhausted at this time. We're hoping for an additional. And there are several wetland practices. We have wetland restoration, constructed wetlands, and flooded prairie wetlands. Here's some of the requirements for the CRP contract acreage. Highly erodible and wetland compliance, that HELWC. If you're farming highly erodible land, you need to have a conservation plan of operation on that. That is a requirement. Wetland compliance, you cannot convert a wetland past what already exists as far as drainage in that type of situation. Timely submit FSA 578, that's an acreage report of the CRP contract acreage. That's a yearly requirement. And it's a good idea to report all the cropland on the farm. I always say, that's just a must. Timely establishment of the conservation practices under the conservation plan of operation, 1 to 2 years to implement. If you enroll in the CRP program, you have 2 years to establish the practice that you said you were going to put out there. Implementation of midterm management practices. This is relatively new. We've had it for a few years now. Some of the original contracts did not have this, and this has just come about in recent years. Once during a 10-year contract and 2 times during a 15-year contract, there are 4 approved midterm management practices that one of these you have to choose that you're going to do to that particular contract acreage. Light disking, harrowing, probably the most popular one, mowing, baling, and destruction. And incidentally, the bales can now be donated through the South Dakota Department of Ag CRP hay donation program. There are some requirements on there, but you can donate that. And then prescribed burning. You must complete a prescribed burning plan from an approved burn specialist. More on the midterm management. Not all of the listed midterm management practices are available for all CRP contracts. Some of them you can do light disking, some of you can't. Some of you can do burning on, some of them you can't. You know, there's different ones. We have kind of a flow chart list that we can show you which ones you can particularly take advantage of. One very popular thing is managed haying that can be used as a midterm management practice. But it's still restricted to only certain CRP practices. Not all practices can be managed hayed. And when I say by managed hayed, is after the nesting period, which is May 1st through August 1st. After that point, you can request to do managed hay and grazing. Under this new farm bill, we're able to do it every 3 years. Before, we were limited to once every 5 years. And you see, with a 10-year contract, you only got to do it one time. And people did utilize it for a midterm management. Well, now, with it being every 3 years, they can do it in that 4th year of the contract, which is the first time they can, first year that's available for midterm, and they can do it in the 6th year of the, or 7th year of the contract. 8, 9, and 10, the last 3 years of the contract, you're not allowed to do a midterm management, not allowed to do anything to it. And these midterm management practices are very important because they really enhance the seedings out there. You know, before it was, they didn't want anything to happen to it. Like I said, they were limited managed haying, even emergency haying and grazing of CRP. But we found out through burning, through getting some of that dead material off there, we actually enhance and get that regrowth. We've got a stronger and more vibrant stand of grasses out there. Midterm management, like I said, can only be done during those periods, the 4th, 5th, and 6th year of a 10-year contract. And if you have a 15-year contract, you have to do 2 midterm management, and that can happen in the 10th, 11th, or 12th year. Again, midterm management practices are to be completed after that August 1st date, the end of the nesting period, with the exception of burning. If you're going to burn the CRP, that can only be done from March 1st through May 1st. We don't want it done during the nesting period. Any questions? I didn't do that good a job, did I? Well, thank you very much. Yes?
What about, I know that cropping history is necessary for CRP. What about a parcel of land that's maybe, how would I almost say it, it was never good enough to farm, and it's really not that good of a pasture, but it really never had any, you know, it's never been enrolled in CRP or never had cropping history. With the loss of habitat that we've faced, I've got adjoining property next to me that I could look at, you know, for some potential interest, but it appears there's no programs available for that parcel. So if you get nothing from it, there's no reason for me to even purchase it.
Is it in grass?
It's basically a crappy pasture is what it is.
Is it in grass?
It's not planted native grasses or anybody could.
But I mean, it is grass, though?
Grass.
So you should explore and see if it could be enrolled in the CRP grasslands. Now, there's not a very large, you know, payment, you know, involved, and maybe you can even enhance the seeding out there, and you can get some cost shares on that. But you know, and plus, it has to be, you know, signed up, goes in, gets ranked and reviewed, and there's no guarantee. But you know, it's definitely worth, you know, a consideration as far as offering that under that program.
But the answers to that would be paramount to whether or not you'd even want to purchase the property, right? I mean, you want to know that going into it.
Yeah, well, and like I said, you need to own the property for a year, right, you know, before you can enroll in the CRP. So, yeah.
Okay.
Good question. Yes, Dr. Barnett.
Yeah, what's the definition of a socially disadvantaged farmer?
Well, socially disadvantaged groups, minority groups, females, women are socially disadvantaged, and they'll rank a little bit higher when it comes to, you know, that. Our veterans do, our beginning farmers do. Beginning farmer is defined as someone who's farmed for less than 10 years. And veteran, I think we all know who they are. So, yep. You bet.
Well, Larry, I have one question.
Yes.
That program that I was looking at I don't remember, was it CP 37?
Yes, the duck nesting, yeah.
Duck nesting? Does that qualify for burning for midterm management?
I'd have to look and see on there. I think it does not.
So I'd have to hay it?
You'd have to hay it, mow it, bale it, and then burn it, on there. Or donate it. Yeah, if that's eligible, yes. I'd have to check and see. It's a good question, but like I said, I don't have them on the top of my head. With 42 practices, it's kind of hard to keep them all straight, which is allowed and which isn't. I think it is, but I'll have to get back to you on that.
I kind of like burning. I mean, burning produces pretty good results.
It does, we don't advocate that. The responsibility is, of course, the landowners. We hope not to make the evening news, on there. So that's why you need to have a plan reviewed by a burn specialist. I would, likely a lot of the burn specialists, when I say that, are the local fire departments. They're of course, burn specialists, and oftentimes the local fire departments, the volunteer ones, or they will come out and do those burnings. They'll probably have a charge for it, but they do that. And we also cost share, burning of the CRP as well. Not a high cost share, but we do have a cost share to reimburse people for those midterm management practices. And you can change your practice to another one if, say it doesn't work out for you. Okay, you're prescribed burning. Okay, well, March, April, we're inundated with rain. You can't get it done. Well, maybe you want to change it over to mowing, baling, and burning, or donation. Like that, or even a light disking, if those are qualifying midterm management practices. Yes.
I kind of just had a similar question on what qualifies a person to be a burn expert.
There are burn experts out there. I know.
Well, I can call myself a burn expert, right?
Yeah. Well, you have to be certified on there. Most of your fire departments, they've taken all the anymore of taking these firefighter courses and things, and which qualify them. And I think private people can do the same thing, but yeah, has to be a recognized burn specialist. Any other questions? Well, thank you for your time. Appreciate it.